All right, and good evening, everybody, and welcome to Train World TV, Train World Live. And tonight we have a very, very special episode, and it's the Operation LifeSaver event. And it started off with the Atlas Tony Cook Model Railroad News, and now it just evolved in something bigger, greater, and better. So thank you, everybody out there, for joining us tonight. And let me go around the horn because a lot of new faces tonight. And as we all know, I'll start off with Tony Cook from Model Railroad News, a regular on the channel. How you doing, Tony?
I'm doing great, Ken. How you? I can't believe it's already almost September 1st. Wow.
Crazy, I know.
Have you done all your Christmas train shopping yet? Where are you going to buy your trains this year?
Well, first I'm going to look in Model Railroad News, and after tonight, I'll give you my order.
Okay, all right.
And next up, we have Drew from Atlas Trains. Welcome back, Drew. How you doing?
I'm doing good. Thanks for having me.
All right. Always a pleasure to have you, Drew. And he's been a newcomer at Atlas, but it feels like he's been there forever.
Just about.
That's right. And next up, Chris from RBP Trains. And I got to give credit to Tony Cook for this because, you know, your YouTube channel is sensational, hot, fresh off the press. And Tony's like, yeah, you got to get this guy on.
Well, I'm just happy to be here. So it's an honor to be on the stream tonight with you, Ken, and Tony, and Drew, and hearing the great stuff that Rachel's going to be presenting tonight. So thanks so much for having me. Go Atlas. Go Train World.
That's awesome. And that's not a digital background. That's your own personal layout, correct?
It is here. Yeah.
Very cool. Neat. Very neat.
Cool.
And last but not least, the most important of tonight, the main event, Rachel Mallet from Operation LifeSaver. How you doing, Rachel?
I'm doing great, and I want to thank you so much for having me on the show. I'm really looking forward to talking about Operation LifeSaver and rail safety and getting to know the other guests, so thank you.
That's great, then. It's a pleasure having you, and we are all excited to learn about some rail safety and about Operation LifeSaver, because I know there's so many great things that your organization does that not a lot of people out there know about. And I believe there's this synergy between model railroading and also going to the real train tracks and rail fanning, or even taking pictures, or just being involved in the train community, that a lot of synergy here. So I'm really excited to see what we could offer and kind of put together and just learn more about Operation LifeSaver. So without further ado, I'll let you kick it off, and we'll go over your whole presentation. But before I forget, let me just talk about how big of a person Rachel is, and with her organization. Her biography is just phenomenal. So I definitely want to go over it just so you know the importance and level that Rachel really has in the organization. Rachel is the executive director of Operation LifeSaver, the national nonprofit rail safety education organization based in Washington, D.C. Rachel has over 25 years experience in nonprofit management, communications, marketing, fundraising, organization development, and leadership transition planning. Prior to joining Operation LifeSaver, Rachel ran a communications consulting firm offering comprehensive nonprofit management services. Previously, she was Deputy Executive Director of the Greater Washington region of the American Heart Association. Her experience also includes serving as Senior Advisor, Chief of Staff with the National Community Reinvestment Coalition in Washington, D.C. Rachel Malley has advanced degrees in both international relations and international communications from Boston University, as well as a Master of Science in Marketing from Johns Hopkins University. She earned her Bachelor of Arts in Sociology and French from Hobart and William Smith Colleges. So that is one monster of a resume, and we are excited and proud to have her on. And not only does she have the resume to back up her experience and in this industry, her husband is also a model train enthusiast. So it's a little fun fact. And without further ado, and hopefully I didn't botch up your resume and introduction too much. So we will kick it over to Rachel, and it's a pleasure to have you, Rachel.
Thank you so much for those kind words, Ken Jr. I really appreciate it. And yes, a shout out to my husband, because if it wasn't for him, I actually would not have applied for this job. I was not familiar with Operation LifeSaver prior to talking to him about it when the opportunity arose. So thank you so much to him. And I have to tell you, I just love this job. Every day around the country, we're making a difference in communities. And, you know, one of the things that was really amazing to me when I started was every 3 hours, there's an incident with either an individual, a pedestrian, or a vehicle in the United States with a train. Every 3 hours. Can you imagine that? And what we're doing every day is working to get the rail safety message out. A lot of people don't realize that the danger of walking on the tracks or on the right-of-way, driving around the gates, not crossing at a pedestrian crossing. So we really go out there and we work with our volunteers, which is a wonderful opportunity for model railroaders who are familiar with the safety measures that you need to do. I know, looking at my husband's railroad and his layout, you know, he really does it so that, you know, there's the right of way and things are far away and it's all to scale and everything. So I think there are those opportunities, and we can talk about that. We have many model railroaders and train fans and rail enthusiasts in the OL family, ranging from our state coordinators who run the programs around the country to our volunteers and even, you know, many of our spouses. So I would welcome everyone to join us getting the rail safety message out.
And the program's 50 years. You know, this is something that surprised me, because it's one of those, it's always kind of been around. You think about it, you see the logo on different diesel locomotives. But when I heard that 50 years, I said, really? I mean, wow, that's longer than I had thought it had been around. And is it what is the organization a private organization? Is it a part of any government thing, or what was kind of its inception, or what got it started?
So we were started in 1972. So next year will be our 50th year anniversary, and a shout out to Drew and Atlas for our model train. So thank you very much for that. And we started, as I mentioned, 1972 in Idaho as a pilot program by the Union Pacific. And that pilot program, for which lasted a few weeks, actually was really successful, and it mushroomed and grew. We are in 46 states around the country, and it is, we've got volunteers and we do our presentations. We reach over 1 million people a year. COVID's put a little damper on those numbers in terms of in-person presentations, but we've done a lot of really creative and online and social media awareness presentations. So we're not letting up on the rail safety message. Really want to change that number of every 3 hours.
That's crazy. And just the stat again, every 3 hours, a vehicle or person gets struck by a train. I mean, that's pretty impactful if you really think about it. And for me, I don't think, you know, railroad crossing, how much danger is there? But every 3 hours, there's a lot of danger, and it seems like a lot of incidents. So, of course, your organization is trying to do their best to I guess, get the word out and how we could improve those stats and really improve the safety and knowledge base on how to react and interact with these scenarios.
Right. So I think, knowing what the rail safety message is, and I just want to go back to Tony, one of Tony's questions, is we are an independent nonprofit. So we headquartered in Washington, D.C. with state programs around the country as an independent entity. But the rail safety message, I'm always surprised when I'm speaking around the country and I ask people, what's the first thing you do if your car gets stalled on the tracks? What's the very first thing you do? Right. I hear different answers depending on the age of the audience, right? I hear, I'm going to call my mom. I'll call AAA. I'll call 911, right? I'll call my spouse, my husband. Really, the very first thing you do, and I hope everyone listening knows, is to get yourself and everyone out of the vehicle and away from the tracks. And the second thing is to find that blue and white emergency notification system sign, or the ENS sign, and call that toll-free number and use the location, the DOT location identifier, and let the dispatch know so they can get a message down to the train crew and hopefully stop the train. And it's not just if you see a vehicle on the tracks. If you see something on the tracks that doesn't belong on the tracks, call that toll-free number. It could be debris, could be, with all the storms we've been having around the country, it could be tree branches, trees. So that number is really important. And I think people also don't realize, they think they're going to hear the train. Trains are a lot quieter than they used to be. And it's an optical illusion at the speed that they come. So it is never a good idea to try to beat a train or drive around the gates or the warning lights.
Yeah, and you think it's like some of these facts or recommendations are silly, but if you're really in the position, I could certainly see people just calling on the phone and saying, what do I do? Or 911, I'm stuck on the train tracks, instead of getting out of the car first. You hear it now on the show and you say, oh, well, I know that, or that's silly. But when you're actually in action, it's a big difference. And it's like your thought process needs to say, okay, take a step back. Let's get out of the car first, and we could call.
Yeah.
And now, Rachel, another good question that we have is, so one big thing about model railroading and, rail fanning is everybody wants to get a picture or maybe a selfie.
Right.
So is there a way to get a good train selfie?
Well, it's interesting because my husband, in addition to being a model railroader, he loves taking photographs of trains. But you have to be safe. You have many of the outlooks and scenic vistas for trains. Some of them have actual platforms where it's a safe distance for photographers to be. Really, the most dangerous thing is to be on the tracks, taking a selfie, holding your phone up. You've got your earbuds in. You're not aware of your surroundings. We have so many tragic stories, especially around graduation and prom pictures, baby pictures. Wow. It's, just stay off the tracks. I mean, the impact of a train and a vehicle, it's like a vehicle hitting a soda can. So that visual, if you can imagine, and we have a video that actually shows that video, and we share it with driver's ed students and yearbook clubs, and really want people to understand that it's not a romantic thing. It's a very powerful machine.
And trains can't stop. I think, isn't that, Rachel? I mean, I think we look at it as a car like, well, I could stop, or I see the trains down there, I'm sure they'll stop. But I think there's that, at least a lot of people that are not into trains don't realize that, no, it's not like stopping your car. I can't stop in just so many feet, even if it's not going that fast, because there's so much involved. But can you talk a little on that? If you see a train coming, think, oh, they'll stop. Well, they may not be able to. Right.
It can take a train up to a mile to stop. I mean, they can't stop, but they can't stop quickly. So it can take up to a mile, and a mile equals 18 football fields for the football fans out there. We're coming into fall, and that that's a long time. So if your vehicle is on the track and you've evacuated your vehicle, it may seem counterintuitive, but what you want to do is you want to not only get away from the track, but you want to run in the direction of the train at a 45-degree angle away from the tracks, because when that train hits your vehicle, there's going to be debris, and you want to be far away from the debris. Also, an interesting point is, unlike a vehicle, a car or a truck, trains don't have steering wheels. So they can't, they can't swerve. They're on the track. That's where they're going. So whatever's on the track is in their way. And the track is private property.
Yeah. And I guess, what is the connection with model railroaders, or what would be your message to model railroaders?
Well, I think one of the things with model railroaders, because of their passion for their hobby and their love of trains, they can be great ambassadors. They most probably know the rail safety message, or if they don't and they'd like to learn more and have a deeper understanding of the rail safety message, we'd love to have them join us as Operation LifeSaver authorized volunteers. And there's a link on our webpage to volunteer with us, and they can go out in their communities and they can share the rail safety message. We have many people who have modular layouts, and they actually bring their modular layouts with them to demonstrate the rail safety message. And I think even beyond doing presentations in your community, letting your family and your friends know about how to be safe and making safe choices around crossings and around tracks and trains is so important, because we can make a difference, each and every one of us.
Right.
Yeah, I think there's so many great opportunities, as a YouTube content creator and part of the community, even through our channels, we can help deliver that message. Have you thought about rail safety? And with the Atlas model coming out, it's a great chance to run it and then talk about it. And then, of course, the outreach in the public, going out to those shows and then having maybe a booth on the side and just educating. Because even for me, hearing some of these things about the call boxes, not everyone may know about that. They'll run out of the car and dial 911. And so that was actually just a great nugget of information for me just in the short time we've been talking. So thank you for that, Rachel.
Sure. Great. I'm so happy. See, made a difference, right? Just in the first hour of the night. So thank you for that, Chris. And it is so important. I think oftentimes when we are passionate about what we do, we forget that not everyone knows what we know. So it is really important to share that message.
Yeah. And Rachel, you were also telling me that you have Rail Safety Week coming up.
Yes. So every year for the last 5 years, we have 1 week in September. This year, it's September 20th through 26th. It's always the last week of September. And it's a culmination of our work that we do around the year, across the year. And every day has a different theme of Rail Safety Week. And all our programs around the country, our partner in Canada and our partners in Mexico, really make Rail Safety Week in North America an effort to get that rail safety message out. So there is one day that's dedicated to law enforcement and Operation Clear Track that we do with our partner Amtrak, where law enforcement and first responders do, they come to crossings with the volunteers and they share that rail safety message. In some cases, they issue warnings as well as citations and sometimes tickets. There's another day that's focused on photographers and selfies, how to be safe around trains and tracks. We have a bicycle, pedestrian, and sports enthusiasts, because we do find people exercising, snowmobiling over the tracks, getting stuck, running down the tracks, hunting, fishing from bridges and trestles, which also are very unsafe. So each day is a different theme.
Awesome. And John actually asked a good question. What is the phone number to call to alert someone? And Jennifer was kind enough to answer. The phone number changes by location. Most, if not all, crossings have a blue and white ENS sign near the rail crossing with a phone number and crossing ID. So this sign, someone would go to the sign and then call this number, correct,
Yes.
Rachel? Gotcha.
Yes, and it is a toll-free number that Jennifer mentioned is different by location, and it connects you to the train dispatch.
That's perfect. And that's probably the most important, to also not only by either stalling out or going on the tracks, are you putting your life in danger? But you're also putting the engineers and the passengers' life in danger. So it's really important to, I guess, make sure everybody's on the same page.
Yes, because we definitely don't want any incidents. We don't want derailments, and we want everyone to be safe.
Without a doubt. And so you can't just get out of your car and leave and walk down the block. So definitely find this blue and white sign. It's probably not a good idea to take a coffee break and leave your car parked out there. So that's a good tidbit.
Yep.
You never know. You never know.
That's
I think that's one thing I see, Rachel, that surprises me when I have been out rail fanning. It seems like a lot of people seem to see tracks and think, oh, I don't see a train right now, so they probably don't, like, trains probably don't operate here very well, but they have no, like,
right.
well, what's your reason for that? Why are you, just like, well, I see some weeds around these tracks, so I bet they never run trains here. And it's like, that doesn't mean anything. So yeah, I think it's an odd, I don't know what you would call it, but people kind of have a perception at times of, oh, I don't think trains run here or whatever, so this is okay, or it's safe to cross here or do this. And you don't have any idea, what could be going on. So I think any tracks, no matter what they look like, should be given as, a degree of respect of like, no, it could be a train anytime.
Right. And well, one of our slogans is see tracks, think train, and trains come in any direction at any time. So a lot of people also don't realize that you could have a two or a multiple track, and trains can come in all directions. So you need to really look both ways at the crossings and only cross either on foot, bike, or in your vehicle at designated crossings.
And Rachel, I guess if your worst case scenario, you're stuck. Blaine actually had a good question. Do you put it in neutral or do you leave it parked? I guess you would maybe leave it in neutral.
I have never been asked that question. I have to say, I don't know, but I will find out and get back to you so you can let your listeners know on your next show.
Yeah, I mean, I would think you'd probably would be easier for the train to push, worst case scenario, but then you also don't want it rolling. So let's just hope you don't get to that situation, Blaine.
That's right.
Let's get to that blue and white sign.
Speaking of the blue and white sign, Drew, you should make some. I'll put one right here on my layout. Like right
yeah. And I think also that, it's not just that your vehicle can get stalled on the track, and that's when you use the blue and white sign or you see something that shouldn't be there. If you're driving a low ground clearance vehicle, and that could be a truck, that could be pulling a trailer, it could be a sports car, it could be a bus, you need to make sure that you can clear that grade. And we say if you can't what is the phrase? Don't commit if you can't clear it, right? If you can't clear the grade, or if you are at a crossing where the stop sign or the stoplight is on the other side, don't wait on the track for the light to change. Wait behind it where the mark is in the pavement.
Yep. And just some good ideas, not good ideas, but some comments that our listeners are saying that they have experienced these dangers. Idaho rail fan, I know someone who was texting and ran into the middle of a train at 60 miles per hour, which is, people are texting driving all the time. Chris Trains and Things. I see rail fanners up here in Stroudsburg way too close to the tracks all the time. So there are those rail fans trying to get those pictures really close. And Tony, I know you want those close up for Model Railroad News, but you may need to take a step back next time.
we always, in fact, we were chasing the Union Pacific Big Boy in Kansas a couple weeks ago. Yeah. And I was really impressed with everybody we saw, because you kind of have that awareness, because you don't know, you see families pull up and all the kids pile out to see the train. And it was really great to see the fact that people were all staying, back on the side of the road, away from the tracks, that I didn't see any situation where I was like, oh, I better say something to that person, or oh, that's not good. So no, I think there's a lot of good awareness. I think, or at least I see that a lot from people, being safe. But and this is the blue sign, is it?
Yeah, that's what an ENS sign looks like, and it'll be by the crossbuck. So there's the crossbuck, and you can see the blue and white sign.
That's great. Thanks, Drew, for bringing that up.
And I thought that was something railroads did. I didn't realize that this was. I guess I didn't connect that. I thought that was something like BNSF or Union Pacific, that they put those signs up. I didn't know that. Yeah. Oh, yeah. So it is there. Okay.
The railroads are in charge of putting up the signs. We are helping people recognize that the signs exist and what they're about. Because I'll tell you, before I started this job, I never really paid attention to a crossbuck. But I grew up in a town where the train ran through it, so I knew not to drive around the gates and to wait. But I never paid attention to the ENS sign, and now I see it everywhere, and it is noticeable when I don't see it.
Yeah, and that's great, Rachel, too, because I didn't know about the blue and white sign. And listen, I think all of us on the show, hopefully we're pretty responsible. Mm-hmm. We're not gonna, take the chance, but you may see someone who is stuck on those tracks, and you may have to react and get attention to that train. So I think it is important. The more the rail fans and the model railroaders, we do know about these signs and information, we can take precautions to perhaps save someone's life. So I think that's pretty important.
Yeah, we have a crossing about 15 minutes from my house, Ken, Junior, to that point, where it's kind of confusing. It's in the middle of a town, and it has a space to kind of park at the light right before the tracks and right behind it. And people always sit right on the tracks. And I'm always the guy that just stops behind the tracks, and people honk at me all the time and, making gestures at me. But I was sitting there one time, and here comes the train. And I just thought to myself, I'm like, okay, it was worth it, because, even though my minivan was holding up the line here, nobody got run over.
That's right. Thank you for doing that, Chris.
Yeah, and Train Man Dan, one thing I've learned, stop, look, and listen before the railroad tracks. So, yeah. And
it's like you say, though, Rachel, and I see that a lot now, especially these Tier 4 locomotives. Not only, that in the old days, the smell of the diesel exhaust, the sound of the locomotives, things are a lot quieter. There's a lot of ordinances in towns where they don't use the air horn and you'll see the sign that says, beware trains, no horns or something. So again, some of the general cues that may be like, well, I didn't hear anything. Right. It's like some of the, like the fast Amtrak trains in the Northeast and such will literally zoom up on you, and there is no chug warning to it.
Right. That's right. And it is really important, when communities have to do a lot, if they do want a quiet zone, working closely with the FRA to ensure safety in their community.
Yeah, and RJ is saying that on the Long Island Railroad with the electrics, you don't hear them coming at all. So just be very careful out there. Yep. And Rachel, do you have any model train enthusiasts that help share the rail safety message with the community?
We do. We have several. So as I mentioned, our state programs are led by our state coordinators. We have several state coordinators who are model railroaders themselves. I'm thinking specifically of my state coordinator in Iowa. He goes every year with his modular railroad layout, and it has different features, and he spends 2 weeks at the Iowa State Fair. And the kids come in because they love the trains, and he is giving the rail safety message not only to the children, but to their parents and their grandparents who are there with the kids. And he often sets up, do's and don'ts along his layout and has the kids, identify what should you do and what should you not do around the track. And that's just one example. We have many volunteers and partners who are model railroaders.
That's great. And I guess since we're on the topic of model railroaders, a lot of people here tonight are excited about this kind of joint venture with Atlas Trains. Can you just talk about how Operation Lifesaver is kind of getting involved in the model train community, and now I guess working with Atlas, and I've seen in the past with other organizations?
Yeah, I want to give a shout out to Drew and everyone over at Atlas for helping us with our 50th year anniversary train. It's really exciting. I know predating me, I've been with Operation Lifesaver just a little over 3 years, and predating me, there was a 25th anniversary train, and there was safety trains. A lot of our Class 1 railroads painted their locomotives for previous anniversaries. And I don't know if we've ever had a model train before, but this was a great opportunity. You know, I've got trains in my house, and I was like, we should have a model train, right? Not a real one that goes on tracks. Stay tuned. We might have something on that down the road. But, you know, this partnership with Atlas was just so easy. And we worked with Margie over at Atlas, and I'm going to kick it over to Drew to talk a little bit more about that. We're just so thrilled, and it sounds got a lot of excitement in our community about ordering the train. I had said earlier, my household, and there's only 2 of us, we ordered 4 trains. So I'm really excited about that.
Yeah. So yeah, Margie did a lot of work communicating with you, and then Steve in the R&D department, getting all the graphics and everything ironed out, and making 3 spectacular models in O and in HO. So yeah, we're really excited about it. And if you want to flip over to there we go. There's a look at it. Mock-up of the O scale one. You can see the part number and the MSRP there. So our first GP40 in the Atlas Premier line. Yeah.
Very cool.
That is so awesome. Yeah, when that catalog came out, it's like, wow, look at that gold Jeep 40. What is that? And then you're doing it both in HO. Yep. And then, as you say, this is the first time for an O. This will be what, a 3-rail O gauge.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, Chris, I'm sure you're excited to see that O scale model.
I cannot wait. Yeah. No, you better believe I'm going to be getting one of these into my collection.
That's great to hear.
Now,
Rachel, not only is it one of my favorite diesel engines, but you know, between tonight's event and just the amazing message behind it, I mean, it's a no-brainer.
Right. And I will say, I didn't know this because I haven't been married 50 years yet, but gold is the 50th anniversary gift or color. So that's why we went with that gold color. So that was a nice touch that Atlas was able to accommodate us. So thanks again to Atlas for this partnership.
And Rachel, just real quick, the 50 years logo, was that created just for this train, or was it created in the beginning of the year, or how was that kind of put together?
So the logo is an anniversary logo that we'll be using with our Crossbuck Operation Lifesaver logo all next year, right? So we really wanted to do some different things celebrating the longevity of the program for 50 years. And one thing that I should have noted is that since our inception in 1972, the number of rail incidents have declined by 83% in the United States.
Oh, wow.
So that's a huge number, even though we're still struggling with the every 3-hour incident, right? But we wanted to create a celebration for the hard work and the community impact we've had for 50 years. So that's a special logo that we created, and a shout out to my team for their hard work on that. I think Jennifer is on, so shout out to Jennifer DeAngelis for that.
All right. Great job, John. And we saw a question, Randolph. Yes, we do have these Atlas locomotives on pre-sale on our website, trainworld.com. And Drew, just real quick, when's the pre-order deadline for these bad boys? Because Atlas is pretty much get your order in.
Yeah, so we're wrapping up. Pre-order deadline is the 8th. So we got a week and a day. So a week from tomorrow is when the deadline is on all 3 scales.
Perfect. And do you know about the if it's going to be a fixed pilot option by any chance?
No, just the swinging pilot on the O scale.
Gotcha. And the GP40 on the O scale, this is a first time for you guys to do any GP40, correct?
I think so, yeah.
Oh, wow. Very cool. New model.
This was part of what I think was just the tooling recently acquired by Atlas adds the Jeep 40. There'll be the 3-rail. And then what now in HO and N, there's the silver and gold series. They're both master line releases, as I recall. And silver is sound ready. So it's got what the speakers in the mechanism, Drew, and you can add a decoder or it'll run as a standard DC silent. And then, of course, the gold version has ESU made DCC and sound, and that's both HO and N. The N will be sound too, I believe, correct? There's both versions of that as well.
Yeah. So both HO and N, they'll have the gold versions will have sound from ESU, and the silver versions are regular analog, but they do come with a speaker. So upgrading it to regular DCC or DCC and sound is almost plug and play with those guys.
That's such a great feature, and you guys really have been leading with that that silver sound ready ability, because it gives you that you can buy whatever decoder you want, but then you don't have to worry about, well, where do I make room for the speaker? How do I wire all that in? As you say, it's no different than just take out the dummy plug and put the decoder in its place. Yep. And then the O, I assume it'll have all the different the sound things. Chris, maybe you can help us a little on that. I forget now on the O, is it what the TMCC? What are the sound systems you guys have for O?
It'll be DCS.
Proto 3, right?
Yes. Right. Yeah. This is the old MTH Premier tooling, so it'll have DCS and Proto Sound 3.
I can see it now, like running around this curve. I can't wait. It's making it hard to wait. I don't know if I can watch much more of this presentation.
Yes, it'll have a smoke unit, spinning fans, marker lights, everything you come to expect from an MTH Premier locomotive, you'll find in an Atlas Premier locomotive.
We should have Tony and Rachel do the dialogue,
Tony, get back!
Look
Take the picture further away.
You better stop. There's a car up ahead.
It's a spectacular looking paint job. It's kind of that inspired. It looks like it's kind of the Rio Grande livery of sorts with gold and then black substituting. But boy, it looks great. That's an awesome look. And this is I know people will ask or wonder, is there such a locomotive? But this is done just for the model. This is a fantasy paint job to commemorate the 50th, and will be an N, HO, and O. So see, I got to buy 3 of them now. I got to buy at least 3.
Each scale.
Well, 5 if you want sound.
And Joe, yes, the silver ones are DCC ready. Gold is with sound. Gold meaning Atlas gold, not gold the engine, just to clarify. And Rachel, this may be an idea for Atlas and Operation LifeSaver, but they're asking for any matching rolling stock to be released later. So, Chris, that may be an opportunity for your layout.
Oh, yeah. I mean, sign me up. Caboose.
Now, there may or may not be a caboose in the works. I cannot confirm nor deny.
Oh my goodness!
Excellent.
That's good. And I don't. Maybe you could talk to that a bit, Rachel. I know. We talked about it's been 50 years. To me, at least, my recognition of locomotives with the crossbuck Operation LifeSaver, maybe mid 1980s. I kind of remember seeing different railroads would have like a special unit with that logo on the side. But I don't know that I've ever seen any freight or passenger cars or cabooses that had that, but locomotives for sure. And I assume is that railroads that participate with Operation LifeSaver then kind of brand a locomotive or put the awareness for the logo on the side? How does that work? Like for, when you see like an Illinois Central or whatever railroad, how did that come about?
Historically, a lot of the railroads, the Class 1 railroads and the short lines would have safety trains, and they would have the Operation LifeSaver logo. We have slightly tweaked our logo and our slogans over the years, so maybe it's not completely recognizable today. And we're lucky to have the benefit of partnerships with all the Class 1 railroads, and the chair of our board is actually with the Short Line Association. So really have a great working relationship with not only the Class 1 railroads and short lines, but also, you know, Bus Association, AASHTO, and APTA for transit as well. So lots of great intersections of partnerships to get the rail safety message out, because really safety is everyone's responsibility.
That's great. And someone's asking, they want this to be an actual paint scheme. So if you could get a major railroad out there to make this paint scheme, I think that would be great, Rachel.
Okay. Well, I'll see what I can do. And I noticed that in the comments, I've got a couple of my state coordinators giving shout outs in the rail safety message. So I just want to give them a shout out as well, because they really are our boots on the ground doing the bulk of the work with the rail safety message, and they're terrific people to work with. So I would encourage you to volunteer and reach out to them. You can also reach out to me and I'll put you in touch with them.
That's great. And I actually have a recommendation, and Drew and Jarrett are going to probably kill me for this one because logistically it may not be feasible, but I'm just going to shout it out there for maybe the next time you can make it happen. But maybe have these engines have a nice flyer with just like the top 3 things and facts, like a fun fact list that you could put in the engine for a recommendation. So if a model railroader now purchases this engine, you know, they know about the safety operation, or check out the blue sign if you get stuck, or call ahead, you know, leave your car first. Just a thought. And Drew will you'll probably send the engines to me so I could stuff them myself.
There you go.
The engines.
It adds to the collectability, though, right?
Yeah.
Years down the road, here's my Operation LifeSaver Atlas 50th anniversary engine with the fact sheet in it.
Well, I'll have marketing look into that.
Yeah.
If they can come up with something.
Marketing is going to be like, is that Train World again? Get them off.
And I guess we should also point out, I know we're talking Operation Lifesaver, but this announcement came with, and there's a whole group of Jeep 40s for all 3 scales in various paint schemes. And again, this is Atlas's first O-gauge Jeep 40. So if you're interested or wanting to look more, if you go to Train World's site or Atlas's site, you can see all the different road names announced, because like there's a couple of Penn Centrals, Rio Grande. What's that other? Is it Port Harbor? There's another really neat, kind of unique scheme in the group. Drew, what is it?
Yeah. And if you stick around the show, you'll see all the schemes that we're doing and all the details. So one thing I want to touch on the Jeep 40s, this is the first time in NNHO that they'll come with ditch lights. So as you can see here, the Operation Lifesaver will have front and rear ditch lights, as well as the Port Harbor. Let's see. First responders locomotive.
Wow.
So Port Harbor is a small rail line in near just north of St. Louis. They actually interchange with 6 of the 7 Class 1s in North America, and they did a wonderful job on this locomotive. I think they painted it up in May of last year, and it's really quite a stunning locomotive, as you can see.
And this is people's wallets are going to hurt with this pre-order monthly packet. They got to get the Operation Lifesaver and honoring first responders. It's a lot to choose from.
Yeah.
And of course, it's an O2, so we didn't forget about the O guys.
Oh, thank you, Drew. Thank you. Much appreciated.
There's so many of those now, Ken, all these special liveries. I mean, I have some people say, oh, you know, there's only a handful of, I remember when I was a kid, there were all these different railroads, but there are so many heritage paint schemes, special paint schemes like this first responder thing. I think there's almost as many different releases now as if there were, you know, oodles of railroads as there, you know, once were before all the mergers. So it's amazing. And I know you being with Train World, you see these things and everybody always is asking, looking for, what was that one special one done for this or that? So these are real highly collectible items.
Yeah, without a doubt. And, you know, I think the railroads are catching on as well, Tony, that people get excited over paint schemes, and Rachel putting out this beautiful paint scheme for the Operation LifeSaver 50th anniversary. I mean, that's something to get excited about, and it's something to be proud about. And either whether you're a rail fan or a model railroader, or just passing by the train tracks and see these paint schemes, it's like, wow, it's really astonishing. But don't get too close, right, Rachel?
That's right.
Don't let them draw you in too far. We can admire Atlas, because I can't wait to see these and, under the Atlas moniker. Just, Atlas is just known for your finer detail. And I'm just really excited to see what these look like when they arrive, Drew.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And a lot of these, as our first few announcements of stuff that was formerly MTH, it's going to be a lot like MTH, which I think is a good thing. MTH has a good name. They make great products. So, a lot of that stuff is going to still be a lot like MTH until we have some time to kind of Atlasify it, if you will. I know the 2Rail guys have been kind of disappointed. We haven't seen any of that. That's coming. It's just, we got a lot of things to work out, iron out, before we can get, can go into the 2Rail stuff and get, like the Atlas trucks on some of the rolling stock and things like that. So all things that we want to do, it's just going to take some time to do it.
Can I borrow that term, Atlasify? I like that.
Go ahead. Yeah. Yeah, we haven't trademarked it yet, so.
Awesome.
And Drew, do you know anything about the ditch lights on these GP40s? Will come with operating and also oscillating ditch lights?
They should, yeah. On the NNHO, yeah.
Okay.
So, and here you can see the rest of the lineup for the O-scale Jeep 40s.
Wow.
Like Tony mentioned earlier, we got Penn Central, and with the Red Sea and without CSX, Rio Grande, and UP. So a lot of these Jeep 40s, they have kind of a cool connection. A lot of them, besides I think the Penn Central, are all secondhand. Most of them started Penn Central, went to Conrail, and then kind of made their way throughout the railroad world. So yeah, there's a lot of cool connections with all these locomotives in this run.
I have a rundown of all this will be in, I think it's November's Model Railroad News, which will be out in about a month. Has got 2 pages with pictures and gives you some, like the Rio Grande was actually Conrail Penn Central unit before they bought those around 1980, and the Union Pacific is somebody else's too. I'd have to pull that up.
MKT.
Yes, was a Katie, and I've got pictures and info to tell you where they came from. Because as you mentioned, Drew, the only out of that group, I think the Penn Centrals are the only like as delivered. Those others are all secondhand or repaint.
Did you say the Katie? Tony, you made my night.
I know. Yes, the Katie. Yeah, the UP was a Katie at one time with Whitman green or red underneath there.
I got to order another one after this. I got to log in and put another order in.
So yeah, the main Central are obviously ex Conrail, also ex PC. The Santa Fe locomotive actually has a really cool story. It's the only GP40 that Santa Fe had. Apparently, when EMD delivered the first batch of, I don't know if it was the first, but when they delivered a batch to Penn Central in Milwaukee, they had some frame cracking. So EMD leased out 20 or so locomotives to Penn Central to kind of replace those, why they fixed the frame. After the lease was up and they replaced all the cracked frames, Penn Central decided to buy all of them except one, which ended up going to Toledo, Peoria, and Western, who was jointly owned by Santa Fe and Penn Central. And then in 1983, Santa Fe bought out Penn Central, and that's how Santa Fe wound up with one GP40. And sad thing is, it only lasted 4 years, and it was destroyed in a collision in California. So,
Tony, I think you could use Drew as a source in your
A plus the whole way, because as he started saying this, well, let's see if he knows all this, and they were frame replacement.
I've been studying.
As a little kid, I grew up with that. Was a couple hours north of me, and Dad would take us up to see the TP&W, and they never painted it like all the way through. They added about 1970 when the need for it once they'd replaced the other units. So TP&W got it then. It stayed in black and was number 1,000 for like 10 years with no paint other than just it's kind of black, nothing paint. And then it got an orange or like vermilion and white paint for a couple years at the end. And then, yeah, as Drew said, when they took over, it became Santa Fe's only. And then it was racked a couple years later. The interesting thing, too, it's not the first Atlas. Atlas did a Jeep 40, Roco did for you guys back in the mid-'70s. So you had a Jeep 40 Santa Fe in like 1975 before there was a prototype. That's how good they are. And
Wow.
they actually made this before. So this was the old Roco Jeep 40 from the mid-'70s. And then now they're doing the actual prototype one. So I thought that was kind of a fun that here they've come back around full circle and here's the real Santa Fe Jeep 40. So cool. And yes, I've got that ordered too. Oh, there's the Katie. Yeah.
And there's the final three, MKT and Denver Rio Grande. Those were both acquired from Conrail. And then the UP, no dynamic brakes because it was an ex Katie.
And Drew, shipping date estimate on, I guess, O scale, HO and N?
O scale, probably second quarter 2022.
Okay.
Everything's crazy right now, so it's really hard to pinpoint this stuff. I'm hoping for a similar ETA on the N and HO, but I feel like that's going to probably slip into the third quarter of next year.
And Daniel, you could order right away. Everybody's taking pre-orders. And Rachel, you know the order deadline date, right? For the Operation LifeSaver engine? And that's September
8th.
September 8th. There you go.
Yep.
September 8th. And I actually want to see it running on Chris's layout.
Oh man, yeah. I mean, I gotta get a whole bunch of these. This is gonna be great.
Very cool.
Definitely gonna get. I mean, obviously we're getting Operation Lifesaver, but that MKT, applause all around.
And then just to wrap it up here, we have the four schemes that do come. The other four schemes that come with ditch lights in the series: CP, CSX, in Dark Future, and then in the orange, and then Susquehanna. So CP is XSU, CSX was XBNO and CNO, and then the Susquehanna is ex-Conrail, an ex-Conrail lease. So
that CSX orange paint scheme looks nice, Tony.
Those were neat. Yeah, maintenance away, I think. Isn't that what it says, Drew, under the number on the cab? Yeah, they're maintenance.
Yep, the MOW, and we do have dump cars, and I think N and O scale for CSX. So those will go great in N scale. The orange locomotive and then the dump cars to tag along with it.
Now, Ken, we were saying September 8th is the deadline on this, but I know, like I order stuff occasionally once it's past the deadline with Train World. They need to order by the reservation date, I guess, to be sure, but that doesn't mean you can't order it after September 8th, right? Because you guys, I mean, you're one of those places where if I have forgotten something, it's like, oh, let me see if Ken Jr.'s got any of those because I forgot to order one. Yeah.
So usually the way it works, we'll look at our orders and place our order based off of that, and usually we'll have extra stock because we want to, have it in our warehouse for those guys that want to see it up close and person or whatever. But sometimes there is that risk, though, that you do sell out. So I would say if you really like any of these engines, if you like the Operation Lifesaver, definitely get your pre-order in. Usually on the hot stuff, it's hit or miss sometimes, especially with right now, model railroading has just gone through the roof. Everybody's home playing with trains. And Drew always cringes when I call him up after the order deadline. Drew, is there any way you could squeeze me in for more? Can you call up the factory? So if everybody out there, we want to make Drew's life easy.
Yes, please.
And so he doesn't have to call China, or place his order after the fact and get them in. So let's try to get the orders in as soon as possible.
Yeah,
you've definitely saved me many a time, though, Ken. It's been some engines I've been after that you were the one.
Very good.
So yes.
Yeah.
And to be fair, the Operation Lifesaver locomotive, all these GP40s that R&D has worked on really makes my job easy. When you got great offerings like this and really cool paint schemes like the first responders, Port Harbor, and then the Operation Lifesaver Gold. It's really not too difficult. But then just to touch, I just kind of want to go back. Yeah, September 8th is the deadline, and we kind of call that the guaranteed deadline. If you order it before then, you're guaranteed to get it. Now, after that deadline, now it's kind of like, okay, how many do we have left over? Does Kenny have one? Does so-and-so have one? So it comes more of a search once you get past that deadline. So really kind of push people to get their orders in. Then.
And if everybody's sold out, we'll give you Drew's cell phone number.
And I won't be able to do anything but say, sorry, you should have ordered on September 8th.
Very good. Wow. Excellent. Lots of good stuff. We learned a lot of information. Rachel, I learned a lot of things today. I had no idea about rail safety, so I'm glad you were on. And Drew, this engine is going to be fantastic. And Tony, I'm sure you're going to do a write-up on this as soon as it comes out. And Chris, we hope you do a nice YouTube video on this one for sure.
I'm going to wait for Tony to send me his fancy pictures he takes first, because he's a way better photographer than I am. So, Tony, it's up to you. And then I can't wait. I can't wait to get this engine out and all the layout. It's going to be a fantastic piece.
And Chris, tell us how to find that. You'll see behind Chris there that Ontario Northland and the Atlas Centerflow are both Atlas cars that I sent him, and he's reviewing those. We're going to have print reviews in Model Railroad News coming up. Isn't that Atlas car awesome? And I love that Ontario Northland, we were doing research on the different logos that they did, but we've got reviews coming up on those. And Chris, how do we find your YouTube channel to watch your videos? Because your videos are such fun. I love watching the toy trains run.
It's very difficult. It's RBP Trains.
And just search that in YouTube. Okay.
So youtube.com/RBP Trains. And yes, we will have Atlas on the channel this week. These are two fantastic cars, and I can't wait to get this video out.
Make sure hit subscribe and ring the bell, right?
Ring that bell.
And I will say your videos are very exciting, entertaining. You do a really good job, Chris.
Well, I mean, the hobby makes it easy. And I think everybody who's been a part of this, there's so much to it. And you look at just tonight with sharing knowledge from Rachel, and then contributors like Tony, and the manufacturers like Drew, and then Ken, obviously you bringing it all together here. There's a huge community out there. And I think that it's going to continue to grow. I mean, I've seen and met so many people that are a part of it. And it's just a phenomenal hobby to be in. And you don't have to leave your house.
Let me ask you this, Chris. Are you married?
I am. I got 3 kids.
Well, you're very lucky, because that's a big space. With all those
you are very lucky.
She's doing her best to wrangle the kids from coming in here right now. I've had to yell under my breath a few times. Yeah, she's very tolerant. She's very
I'm sure pretty soon you got to tell your spouse that it's going to go into the kitchen. They'll love that.
Well, I can't go left to right. We can only go up now. So yeah, that's where we're going.
Very cool. Well,
trains everywhere.
Very cool. Very good. And before we wrap it up, we will be raffling off this Atlas freight car. I wanted to do something Operation Lifesaver, but I didn't have anything in stock. So hopefully, Rachel, you and Drew can work on just maybe a freight car for Operation Lifesaver in the future. But we're going to raffle this off. So put it in the chat, Operation Lifesaver, and then your zip code. So type in the chat, Operation Lifesaver, in the zip code, and we're going to be raffling off this Atlas freight car. So we'll pick out a winner, and that should be it. Yeah, and I think that would be nice.
Rachel, what's the website to find? I didn't realize the volunteer opportunity. You talked about that. How can do I just Google Operation Lifesaver? Where do I go to find out more?
You can visit us online at oli.org. You can volunteer with us, or you can request a free safety presentation.
Oh.
That's great.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Perfect. And Drew, Thank you so much for showing these GP40s. Just really excellent job. And thank you for working with Rachel on the Operation LifeSaver custom paint scheme. Beautiful. Rachel, thank you so much for joining us tonight. Really, you did an excellent job.
Thank you. And thank you for having me. It was great spending the night with all of you. And I am looking forward to seeing the Operation LifeSaver trains on all your layouts. So thank you. And a big shout out again to Atlas. Thanks, Drew.
Yeah. Thanks, Ken, for putting us all together and bringing us all together. It's been great.
You got it. And thank you, Drew, for bringing up the, let's bring on Operation LifeSaver on board and get everyone on this great big live event. So great job to you, Drew. And Chris, thank you so much for joining us and showing your layout. Excellent. And I'm sure we're going to hear more great things. And I guess the reviews with Model Railroad News should be fun.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me. Really appreciate it.
And Tony, we'll give you carte blanche, last minute words. Thank you very much.
Yeah, it's such an awesome thing. You know, I love collecting trains. I love reporting on new releases and things. So yeah, this run from Atlas in 3 different scales of this cool gold Operation LifeSaver. We've had so many neat models this year, Ken. I mean, is it me or does it? We've just had so much neat stuff, and we've had some great shows, like having Rachel on. You know, the Amtrak show we did earlier this summer. We've had some awesome model railroad stuff this year, and this has been just another surprise and neat piece. So definitely check those out, trainworld.com, and look up those Atlas Jeep 40s because you're covered in every scale with those.
Without a doubt. And we'll trade plugs back and forth. If you haven't seen it, definitely pick up a copy, Model Railroad News. And Tony talks about events like these going on. Just really great. He covers so much, and there's so much information in your magazines. It's not a thin a couple of pages. You really have so many articles and in-depth write-ups, and it seems like Chris is going to be reviewing some stuff. So you're getting the hobbyist involved, and hopefully we could see a great article about Operation LifeSaver, and who knows, maybe the tips that we learned today. So it's always fun to read your catalog. So we're looking forward to it.
Awesome, Ken. Thanks a lot. ModelRailroadNews.com, or you can go to shop.whiteriverproductions.com to find out more.
That's great. And so over there, you could subscribe for a newsletter, or how do you go about getting a subscription?
At modelrailroadnews.com, you can find links to that. And again, the shop.whiteriverproductions.com will get you both Model Railroad News and, all our publications. We do Railroad Model Craftsman, Narrow Gauge Gazette, Passenger Train Journal, Rail Fan. Anything you're interested in trains, we probably have a magazine.
Sounds good. And Tony covers it all. So thank you, everybody, so much for joining us tonight. We really appreciate it. Don't forget the GP40s and the Operation LifeSaver engine. The pre-order deadline is September 8th. If I got it right, hopefully. So September 8th, make sure you get your orders in. Thank you so much, Operation LifeSaver, and everybody joining us tonight. We really appreciate it. Thank you, and have a good night.